was a member of the original group that Al Torrey, as town manager of Amherst, set up to see if the Amherst needed a conservation commission. Janet Dakin was on that. She impressed me as the original Energizer Bunny.
Toby Dakin came up with the idea that we ought to establish a trust. So he got it going, and Janet was a big part of it too, of course. My husband was a geologist, and I had grown up in Minnesota in the prairie lands and was used to open space. Then when I moved to Amherst, kind of fell in love with it, and I really wanted to keep it the way it was. I really wanted to do everything I could to help promote open space and nature.
Personally, I was always very open space minded, and it came to me when I would be fishing a nice area, I would thought, why can't this be part of the town of Amherst, this sort of thing? Why it couldn't be a recreation area or a park? Of course, we didn't have a park. I think our third or fourth purchase way back was when Steve approached us and felt that the land from Cushman Bridge coming all the way down the road to Puffer's Pond should be conservation area. He offered it at a very reasonable price, and we were able to get some reimbursement from the state and went to the town, and that was my first presentation to the town.
Now, there was some really creative fundraising that went on for Kestrel, because we had a system of caretakers who were there all the time during the season. But one of them was Paul Jones, took his boat up there, his power boat, and water skied on the pond. There was a radio personality, Buddy Rubbish. He went out on a raft for a week on the pond and broadcast his show and brought in money, and it went to Kestrel.
The water courses and the water resources of the valley are clearly going to be very important. And I know that was what got Joe Larson really started in Pelham, because that was what the Concom focused on. All of the streams and tributaries, protecting those lands as much as possible. It's an interesting concept for a land trust to begin to work with the communities to enlarge the protection for the riparian zone.
I was teaching an environmental science class, and one of the things that I worked into that was a visit with the class out to Potoc. And the kids had a patch that they had to take an inventory of what was there and then how did it change during the different seasons. I got very attached to Potoc for years afterward.
One of the other interesting projects that the Kestrel Trust took on was the buying of Larch Hill property.
Common School was First Congregational Church, I think. They would hold their classes out on the common. That's how it got named.
So I think it was Toby probably made arrangements with them to turn it into a school.
I had a project on Mount Pollux. The kids had a lot of fun. Many of them didn't know that conservation area existed. And it's such a spectacular view up there.
There's the Dakin Conservation Area. This is actually named after Janet Dakin. I think it's 20 acres on the Holyoke Range, providing a connection up to the other land of the state and so on. But it's a nice parcel. So Janet actually worked on putting some pieces together up there that went from the water tank up to the top, Rattlesnake Knob. Those were early ones.
Pomeroy Lane and Woods Bridge. And the range.
And why is that your favorite?
Scenic. I worked in those fields.
Yes,
I learned to drive on Woody Bridge Road.
Did you really? And I always think when you're there, you look up at the mountains, and when you're up at the mountains, you look down there, and it's still pretty much
Yeah, you're saving both mountains and...
Yeah, right.
Alan Torrey was town manager at that point and was really pushing for trails. He suggested, why don't we put a trail in along the Fort River down where is now the Emily Dickinson Trail.
Okay.
And then the Robert Frost Trail came. We worked on that in the early 80s. And that started out as a 21-mile trail, and now it's a lot longer, but that connected, 11 towns now.
This is how I got started with Kestrel. In 2000, I was doing volunteer wildlife tracking to figure out if there was a corridor for black bears and coyotes and moose, and so we went out with Judy's son, Charlie Eisman, and we learned how to track, and we found indeed that this is a place where wildlife are going back and forth.
There was a piece of property for sale on Harkness Road, and I tried to put the money together to buy it, and Kestrel Trust
gave me $15,000 toward the purchase. And then we added up neighborhood contributions from all around this area. We got the 150 acres and had a big dream of protecting all the way from Harkness Road, all the way around in a big circle, back down to Arnold Road. And that project just finished last year. Bears come through my yard, and the moose have come right up to my house and around the corner. And it is so thrilling to have 3 moose, a mom and a yearling and a younger one. They spent the whole day in my backyard, and they would never have done that if we hadn't protected that land and all the rest of the land that we protected around there in Pelham. There was a lot of really good work by good people to make it all come out financially and environmentally and aesthetically and all those things.